Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm kind of in a rush, but I'm going to try and get this done before I have to be at my dental appointment this morning. But I'm going to first just say that I appreciate the comments and the feedback that I've gotten for the dream interpretations and for all of this. I think it's just really nice, and I'm really grateful for it. So I'm going to just jump right into this. I'm going to first pull a card, and then I'm going to go into the dream. So the cards I'm using are the Oracle of Mystical Moments, and these are, I call them my dream cards because they seem like more like a dream as opposed to the tarot, which I really like, but I think that these are more fitting for the dreams. So here we go. Okay. And this one is the Gardener, and very interesting card. I think that I'm not really sure how it really fits with the dream, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the dream, and then I'll try and discuss a little bit about this card after I do the dream. But as I said, I'm in a little bit of a hurry today, so I'm going to try and do. This is day number 2. It's May 5th, 2025, and I titled this The Goat Card. I said, I'm really interested to hear what you all have to say about this one. And Metatron says, well, let's get started. Tell us about your dream. I said, okay, this is a dream I had back in 2023, so it was a while back. I called it the Goat Card. I started out by saying the following. I was stranded in mines and I had to find a way back home. There was no buses or trains running, so I was walking with my bicycle through the streets until I reached a place at the edge of the city. It appeared to be an old-fashioned station, but instead of it being an actual station, it contained various modes of transport. They had long cars that looked more or less like parade floats and wagons with hay as well as blankets. The one I chose was a float-like cart that was pulled by a single goat. It had a flat wooden backboard with an open face. The seats were narrow and cushions, and although it had a ceiling of sorts, it felt cool there. And I surmised that it was around the middle of spring or the start of autumn. Since they could not take me all the way home, they informed me that they could only take me to a place that was about 10 miles from home. I figured that once there, I could catch a train or continue my journey. The journey would cost 57 euros, which is about $60 in the U.S. I happily paid the sum without actually thinking that a taxi would have been faster and probably cheaper. Or I could have continued on my bicycle since I had it with me anyway. And Nigel says, this is long, you remember a lot. I said I wouldn't if I hadn't written it down first. I took the belongings that I had into a small doorway that led outside and to the actual cart. Once outside, I approached a small platform. On either side of the platform, I could see people in other forms of transport. They were long, outdated train cars that had been converted to having wheels instead of rails, hay rides with long seats covered with hay, and caravan-style carriages that carried people. I stared for some moments at the people in their carriages, and they started to wave at me, and as they began to leave the station, and I returned the gesture. Reaching the goat cart, a woman informed me that I had to wear a mask during the ride. Why that was the case, I do not know, but conveniently I had a mask in my purse. I pulled it out and put it on. I put my bicycle on the cart in the very back behind the furthest groups of seats, in essence, the furthest away from the goat. I placed my backpack on one of the seats and climbed aboard. Several people were already on board, but they seemed to have appeared from out of nowhere. I had thought for much of the time that I would be traveling alone. I was doubly surprised to discover that one of the passengers was someone I knew, but I hadn't seen in a long time. As I sat down, the cart started to move, and it felt as though the goat was getting accustomed to the added weight on the cart. Seconds later, it began to move in a steady rhythm. As we moved along, I noticed that dusk had fallen, but the further along we went, the sky looked as though it was midday. We traveled along small side streets, and it felt like we were in a parade of sorts. People lined the streets waving, and children would wave as we went by, and we waved back. This was the only visible on one side because the left side of the high wooden panel we could only see out of the right side of the cart. Just before waking up, I realized that we had not yet reached our destination. I had no idea if we had actually gotten there. But after waking, I got to thinking about how much a small animal, as a goat, could pull such a large cart. Metatron says, you said that it looked like a parade float, correct? I said, yes. The side of it was tall, but I couldn't tell if it was painted or if it was actually encased in two different in two different dreams. Ramon says, logically, that is how it appears. You first were in a cart, then in a coach being pulled by a goat, and then you were in a parade float. I said it seemed that way, but the thing is, I could have taken a taxi. Why is it that I remembered paying 57 euros? Is this significant to the amount of money? Metatron says the amount of money is pretty irrelevant to the fact that you remembered so many aspects of the dream. You were rather surprised by the fact that the single goat was pulling you and other travelers along. I said, does it mean anything? And Metatron says, it means that many times in life people carry burdens that seem far outweigh their assertions of how much they can carry. A goat is a smallish animal, but the fact that it can carry a burden that is far greater in mass than a person believes is truly what the dream is about. Your bicycle is the burden that you carry. That is to say that you are carrying a burden that you have chosen to push, as opposed to getting on and using as a way to find your way home. It is surprising that you are pushing the bicycle through the streets without realizing that it is a mode of transport itself. It never occurred to you that throughout the dream that you could have solved your own problem on your own. You did not require a goat cart to get you home. You had a way home all along. The act of getting on a goat cart wasn't, in fact, a sense of adventure for you. It seems more exciting to say I was on a goat cart or a parade float as opposed to being on a bicycle. The fact that you saw an old acquaintance on this goat cart was encased in the idea that along your path you will find all old friends or acquaintances who are also on a similar path as you. The idea of finding others who, like you, are on a similar path is reassuring somehow. The overall notion will be that each person is on a path and similar to the crowds in the room of and library being sectioned off, or is case in point to that. You waving to the people, to the passing car, is like the acknowledgement that there are those on their journey and you are on yours. I said, why do I remember so much about this dream? And Sunshine says, I can answer that. You have a mind that is filled with images and concepts that could be either put to stories or written down in a journal. The fact that you can see animals in clouds and can put ideas about them to paper cannot be understated. You remember more about dreams because you are tapped into the area of your mind and consciousness. The elements of this dream stand out in your mind because you are seeing them as being unusual. Remember the humble king story that Jesus told you. The story was the backstory to the small image that was fed into your consciousness. These things create a story then in your mind. You want to hear the whole story or just not the bits, and not just the bits about them. The humble king story may have been a familiar idea to you, so you remember the small bit of story that is unusual. The rest is not so unusual. It was as though our conversation that we were able to flesh out the ideas of the throne room. Then when you had the dream about the library and you remembered a similar scenario with the windows, yesterday when you spoke of the library, you said that the windows were similar to the windows in the throne room. I said, could I have been in the same place? Nigel says, you could have. If the windows were the same, then yes, you could have very well been in the castle of the humble king. I said, yesterday you said that could have been my Akashic records. Is it possible for my Akashic records to be in some sort of castle? I always thought they were in my meadow. And Ramon says, the Akashic records are encompassing, Yvette. You don't have to imagine them in one simple place. The fact that it is perhaps wise of you not to put human limitations on them. That is to say that all of your records could be at any place at any time. They could be contained under your seat in the coat cart. The knowledge that is contained in them are as large or small as you are willing to perceive. You are not bounded by spatial limitations with regards to them. I said, okay, so was the humble king's throne room and the library the same place? Metatron says, that is not significant, but since you have inquired, the answer is yes. All things are possible in dreams. The goat cart could have stormed through the palace, and the people in the outer room could have been the passengers on the trains and cars that you described. You see, the idea of both dreams are about the people who are passing in and out of your life. You mentioned that there was a woman in the library with you. She's not an active participant in your current reality. The man in the goat cart, a former acquaintance of yours, or someone you haven't seen in a long time. The message in both of these dreams are the same. The only differences are the storylines and how they played out. People pass in and out of your life every day. You make friends, say farewell, but you never forget the people who have journeyed with you. You do not cast them aside if interests change or you go down a specific path. You merely move on and embrace the idea that for whatever reason you are on your own journey. The goat is rather like the young boy in the library. They symbolize a wisdom and strength that embodies an idea. The goat has a path to take, and while you are in a similar path, it maintains the course and leads you to a new place. The boy does have the same. He sparks your instincts with regards to your own journey. Where are you going? Who are you on the journey with? What is your ultimate destination? I said to come home, not in the sense of my physical home, but to reach my spiritual home. And Nigel says, yes, exactly. The journey on the goat cart is your adventure. Sometimes you choose with what means of transport you take, or you allow the others to carry you forward. As you move along you find that your journey is not always a smooth one. You will find that you will have to disembark and change in order to move further along. I said, so the goat cart is not necessarily about an actual goat cart. It doesn't matter if it seems like a parade float or 1 minute and a carriage at the next. Metatron says, that's about change, Yvette. The change in the cart versus the float are about the stumbling blocks you might encounter along the way. That is why you see it in two different and quite distinctive ways. I said, that makes sense, thank you. And Metatron says, tomorrow we will dig deeper into this dream as we explore your next dream. I said, they all seem to connect somehow. And Metatron says, of course, you are on that connecting point. This is all about your consciousness. I said, thank you. I look forward to it. And Metatron says, we do as well. So that was the end of the meditation. And I'm going to look at this card. It says the gardener. And the gardener is a character who actually instigates growth. She brings about the idea that growth is important. And whether I am the stalk of corn or the vegetable that she is harvesting, or if she is like the young boy or the goat in the dream. The irony is that you see in her costume, she looks like a building. It looks like the dress that she's wearing looks like a house or a building. So could that be the a personification of the dreams that I had with regards to the castle and the high windows and the way that the castle was set up? It's hard to tell. But one thing is clear. She is harvesting growth. She is bringing that growth about, and perhaps through my own dreams and through the things that are happening to me in these dreams, I am that stalk of corn that is growing. I am learning to allow that person to help instigate that growth that I am needing to have. So while I looked at this card at the beginning of the meditation and thought, wow, this doesn't really connect to the meditation, maybe in a very profound way it does connect to it, because she is like the embodiment of the boy or the goat in the dreams, and that stalk of corn, well, that's me. I'm growing. I'm growing, learning, and becoming more aware of what it is that these dreams mean and how they have an impact on my day-to-day life. So that is the meditation for today. I have to get going. I have a dental appointment. I have to get my teeth cleaned, and so tomorrow we'll dig a little deeper into these dreams and see what's going on with them. But I think it's a very wonderful idea, and I think that it's coming together very nicely. So I wish you a wonderful day. All the best to you. Have a great day, and as always, namaste.